Do you know when we first did that bit?
No.
Yeah, I've grown accustomed to your face. We did that 16 years ago. The first time we did it, it was the first thing I ever did on network television. And it was the old Steve Allen Tonight Show.
The old Steve Allen Tonight Show?
Yeah. 11:30 at night, yeah.
That's amazing.
Isn't that neat?
Yeah. Your face is not as well known as the other Muppets, but certainly it's certainly in a class with theirs. I mean, it's equally appealing. That's a compliment.
I don't know what you mean by that.
That's
okay.
a compliment. We have a piece of tape of a number that you did, and should you explain it for us?
Okay. Yeah, well, Kermit, the very old one, the thing that we just did, you know, is the very old Kermit. And since then, Kermit has evolved, and he's changed around a lot. We did, this is the way Kermit looks nowadays.
Aha, there's Kermit.
Hello there. Yeah.
Hi, Kermit.
And, yeah, well, how do you do? It's nice to be here, you know. And hello out there in TV land. And,
but his whole body has changed a great deal since, you know, the early one.
Why did it change? Is it a matter of diet, or what is it?
Yeah, well, it's not really diet, no. It's a matter of progressing, you know, in the direction of, you know, better-looking frogs, I suppose, you know. Something like that.
Hard to tell where Kermit leaves off and you begin.
Yes, I've noticed that too. But what I was going to say is that this piece of tape that we have here is a special that we did last spring. That's going to be rerun in a week or two, December 10. It's called The Frog Prince, and we made a number of frogs, sort of similar to Kermit, and we did a musical number in there where the frogs. We have this little bitty prince who is enchanted and turned into a frog, and he meets a number of frogs, and they're trying to talk him into the life of a frog. And so it was like this. The frogs are singing the beauty of being frogdom.
What are the problems you run into in a frog production number like that?
Well, we did a number
I asked him, but you can answer.
Who would you like to talk to?
You tell me.
You know, we did a lot of the show with marionettes and hand puppets. And we do kind of both kinds of puppets.
Marionettes is anything that's controlled from above?
Yeah, the string kind. The string kind are called marionettes. And a puppet actually is any kind. You know, you can call this kind of puppet or a string puppet or a rod puppet.
Yeah.
And we do sort of a variety of all the different techniques, you know. But when we were doing Frog Prince, we would use the hand puppets whenever we were shooting close. And then when we'd go for wide shots, we'd work it, you know, with marionettes from a bridge. Up above. A bridge is a thing you stand on.
Because for the long shots, you couldn't conceal the men who...
Yeah.
We don't want to give away all of the magic. We know no matter how much you know about how this works, the minute you see them again, they're completely convincing. It's amazing. During rehearsal, it was hilarious here because Bert and Ernie were rehearsing, and then the director would say, "Can you hold on a minute? We got to set a light." And Bert would say, "What?" I can't hear you. And it was really great. You're in the numbers racket. We all know about that. Do you want to explain that?
Well, we have another piece. I don't know. No, I don't.
Oh, you don't want to explain that now? I thought we had a numbers bit we were going to do. Maybe we shouldn't do it in this segment because
we have another thing first.
We're going
to do that later.
I can wait. I can always wait.
We have another musical number that we did on the Frog Prince.
Wouldn't want to offend all those frogs who were all rehearsed and everything.
No. This is we had an ogre in the show, and he went around trying to eat the frogs. That was part of the bit.
There's always somebody like that.
Right, and so.
Yeah, frogs' legs and all that stuff. I've seen you guys, yeah.
Gotcha.
Hey, would you like to try
dry
one?
scalp condition.
You ever tried puppetry?
I never have. No,
Are you interested
wondered about it.
Yeah. Would you like to?
Sure. I can put my
Sure, why not?
hand in there?
Right hand?
How far?
Sort of all the way up.
Oh, it's where? Yeah. How do you make the...
Put your thumb in the lower jaw.
It's all right. It's all right.
You're
nice boy.
Nice boy.
That's all I know.
You have to open the mouth when he talks, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right.
It's funny, the natural thing that people usually do is say, hello. Hello.
Instead of hello.
Hello.
So, yeah, the instinct is wrong.
Right.
Gee. Who else have we got?
Well, we brought along other characters. Would you like to see?
Do you mind resting for a moment?
Right
there.
Here's a character called Lothar, one of our bigger, shaggy guys.
Yeah. Lothar's embarrassed at seeing me do this.
No, it's all right. I don't mind a bit. I got my clothes in my mouth.
Yeah, that's...
Clothes out of my mouth. So I can... That's right. And, yes, I came with some of my Frackle friends. See Frackles back there.
What are Frackles, Lothar? What?
Those are Frackles back there.
Where do you find... What are Frackles native to? What?
All of these
Do they
bite?
bite?
Sometimes. He does a lot of sniffing. He doesn't particularly bite. But these are characters that we did in a Christmas special that we did, and that's going to be on the air again this year with, on the Ed Sullivan.
Frackles are very jumpy,
specials.
aren't they?
Yeah, these were a bunch of evil characters. And actually, Thog was one of the Frackles too. He was a very large Frackle. They come in all sizes, you know.
Thog is actually a Frackle.
Yes, he's actually a very large Frackle.
We could get one thing out of the way early on. By the way, you really, here we are in December and you're still celebrating the Mets.
Yeah, I went to the 6th game.
Thanks to, I'll never forget that game. It seems so long ago now. We shouldn't kid the home audience. By the miracle of tape, we're a little out of sequence here. And as I sit here now, you can still smell champagne. Two of the guys were in here earlier, and but now it's December. Or 6 years from now, depending on your aerial, I suppose. The Black Woody Allen is something I will not call you. I think you'll be relieved to know that. But
Thank you.
It's a phrase that comes up in everything I've read about you. Where in hell did they get that idea? Aside from the obvious fact that you both have red hair and are Jewish and wear glasses.
And we're from Brooklyn.
I'm from Brooklyn, yeah.
It started in Cannes this past May. The film was in the Cannes Film Festival. And the French critics started.
Oh, well, no wonder. The French.
But it's been picked up here.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, let's see, because your film was in black and white and you do wear glasses, I suppose did they see any other similarities that I'm missing?
I don't see them.
Okay, so we can let that go.
Can let it rest.
Are you in any way at a dangerous point in your career now? You've done a film that no one who couldn't sell, as they say, refrigerators to Eskimos could have sold them from what it sounded like you were going to do. But somehow you did it. People are paying good money to see it now. You're in danger of being driven around now in limousines and taken to lunch. You know what I mean? Is this a dangerous point for you as an artiste?
It could be. I won't let it become that.
Yeah. How do you protect yourself?
Well, I do it because I know what I want to do. I want to be a filmmaker. I want to make films. I don't make films. I didn't do it because become famous or to meet gorgeous women or to make tons and tons of money.
Yeah.
And since I know what my priorities are, all the other stuff doesn't matter. So I'm just going to continue making films.
Are people surprised to find you to be serious? Do you know what I mean by that? 'Cause
exactly.
You're hilarious in the movie, and when you say, please, baby, please, baby, 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 please.
People have never met me. They expect me to be Mars Blackman, and they're like really disappointed.
Incidentally, the rhythm of that is from some deep da da deep da da deep da da dee 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 dum, right?
I don't know. That really is improvisation. That was.
Was it? Yeah.
Right.
It is a funny film, and it grows on you. At first, I didn't know quite what to make of it because I saw it without any knowledge, which is the best way to see a movie. What is it that annoys you and others I've spoken to about what's the name of that film, Soul Man?
Oh.
Am I getting into a can of worms or peas? I really want to know.
Okay, for people who don't know about Soul Man, the premise is that you have this rich kid whose father's a millionaire and refuses to pay his way through Harvard Law School. And there's a black scholarship. So the only way he can get into Harvard Law School is to take a pill that's a suntan pill and put on an afro wig, and he gets admitted as a black student.
Passes himself off as a minority.
And it looks phony. There's no way in the world to see how Thomas looks black. And to me, it's really an attack on affirmative action. And when I was out in L.A. promoting the film, I said that Ray Don Chung's card from the Sisterhood should be revoked. And the producer, Stephen Tisch, called me up and started getting nasty about it, you know, saying, had I seen the film? I said, no, I didn't have to see it. I mean, that's the premise of the film. And to me, I don't see why Ray did. I was really surprised that James Earl Jones was a part of that. I was really surprised.
But you haven't seen it?
I'm not going to see it either.
Wasn't that like the people who condemn Tom Sawyer for
no,
not
not
having
really,
read it?
because I've seen clips of
okay.
the film, and if the whole premise is that he's passing as black, and it's so phony, that means all the black people in the movie are idiots to think that this guy, that they could believe that he's black.
Yeah. Maybe they cast idiot black people. Just I'm trying to be nice. I do see the problem. Now, are you saying that nobody could make a film in which a black man? What I really want to know is, are you bothered by the premise, or is it that it's executed badly?
I think it's a combination of both. They're trying to pass off as attack on racism. I really don't see it like that, and it's not funny to me.
A black man did pass as black. I mean, a white man in real life in Black Like Me in that film. Apparently worked.
What year was this, though? I mean, I think it's time to move on, you know?
Yeah.
Forward, progress.
I'm interested in this. Could no white actor play black? Whoopi Goldberg claims she could play white convincingly.
Yeah, I believe it.
And I think... Is this delicate territory I'm in? I mean...
Let's talk about She's Gotta Have It, Dick.
To do what?
Let's talk about She's Gotta Have It.
You really made the movie not exactly on a shoestring, but close. What does a shoestring cost these days? You did it for what?
$175,000.
Yeah, which I suppose sounds like a lot of money until you see what a lot of things.
It's a lot of money unless you're talking about doing a film in that type of budget.
Yeah. Did you have enough to finish it, obviously, on that kind of money?
We never had all that money at one time. It came in nickels and dimes, and it wasn't until I signed a deal with Island Pictures, I got my first check for the advance, I was able to pay off all of the bills and debts that we amassed over the production of the film.
There are good compliments and bad ones. What do you like to hear people say when they come out of the film? I guess what I'm indirectly asking you is this film supposed to mean something or be just an entertainment?
I try to get a combination of both, try to have some kind of depth in it, and plus, if I can put some humor in it. No matter what type of genre film I'm going to do, I'm always going to have some humor in it. I don't think that She's Got to Have is an out-and-out comedy, but there are funny moments in it. So I think it's a combination of the both. But I think that people like the film. I've seen the film with audiences all across the country, and it really hasn't varied from place to place, you know, where people laugh. They're all laughing at the same spots.
I read somewhere that you got mail from women who liked some things and not others. And one of the things they didn't like, correct me if I'm wrong, was that the central character at Ray early on, the lady, has
Lola Darling,
a lesbian lady whose last name is
Gilstrap.
Gilstrap.
Opal Gilstrap.
Yeah. I figured that name must be an anagram for something.
Not really. I mean, what happened is that a lot of the women were disappointed that Nola didn't make love with.
Yeah, that's the interesting. Why were they disappointed that she didn't succumb to the lesbian advances of the other character? How would it have been better if she had? That's what the point.
I think it would have been too much, 3 men and a woman in this film. And the people I've told them, I said, you know, that's your movie, but it wasn't this one.
I guess maybe the reason go make their own film. Maybe the reason this whole question obsesses me is I always get annoyed when people say there have to be role models. I mean, no good art ever comes out of anybody setting out to make role models, or roles, yes, but role models, no. Now, these same people who have been bad-mouthing Color Purple, some of them black and others not, could easily say about your film, well, you're showing black women as women who just go to bed with men and think of nothing else. Does that kind of thing mean anything to you? Or you just
it
have to put
means
all that out of
something
your mind?
because as an artist, you're walking a tightrope.
Yeah.
I mean, I've said a couple things about The Color Purple that could be turned right back on me with this film, but I think that if you're honest and you know what you want to do, you just have to do it. And if people don't like it, I mean, what can you say?
You move on. You said, I don't want to be stuck a few years from now as a guest star on The Love Boat, or what was that quote of?
I was talking about how quick, people could come and go.
Yeah.
I said I intend to be making films for a lot, further down the line. I don't want to be on, a guest host on The Love Boat or Hollywood Squares next year.
That would be the trap that you fall into.
Right.
Do you find you've had enough time now as a success to be annoyed by the constant problems of being interviewed and so on? What is it they ask you that really irks you? I can guess, but I may have covered a couple of them already. You were about to tell us when we were rudely cut off.
I was going to say I find it amusing that I'm having meetings with these studio heads all the time. And it's amazing. I mean, a year ago we were killing each other to get this film made. Now they're throwing all kinds of money at me to sign 3-picture deals with these studios. And
that shouldn't surprise you, though, does it?
no, it doesn't surprise, but it's amusing, though.
It's got to be, yeah. Do you ever amuse yourself by not showing up, for example? Or?
No, I don't think I can afford to do that. I mean, I just have one film. You can't get too cocky or anything because the next one bombs, I'll be out on the streets selling tube socks like you saw now.
I'm out of tube socks. I was kind of hoping you might have brought some along. Now, how did your film, among what must be a lot of films from unknown directors, unknown black directors and all kinds, get to the point where it got seen at all? The odds against it are overwhelming.
Well, we killed ourselves to make the film, and then the world premiere of the film was at the San Francisco Film Festival this past March 28th, and we invited all the distributors that could handle this type of film. Not the big Hollywood studios, but they have middle-sized distributors. Mm-hmm. And we showed the film, and that's when the bidding war started. Iron Pictures picked it up. We opened here in New York.
They call it a bidding war?
Well, that's what happened.
Uh-huh.
It opened August 28th here in New York, and there's a period in August where all the Hollywood films have opened, and there's a slot that if you have a good film, you could catch fire, and that's what happened.
Yeah. Does it seem unreal in any way? Did you expect to hit with this one?
We expected it. I expected it. But I thought that it would have taken a little longer than it did, but we shot right out of the gate.
It must be a funny feeling to have an article appear about you, first sentence of which is you were fired from the movie that just came out. I'm thinking about the Esquire piece that Kenneth Tynan wrote about you. And it said that at one point they were going to fire you.
Yes, so on every film they're trying to fire me.
How many times has this happened to you?
It happened virtually as many times as I tried to direct a film.
Every film they've tried to fire you?
Practically.
Oh, well,
or take the film away from me, let's put it this way.
How do they dare do that? I mean, does it ever cross their mind that nobody else is going to finish it quite the way you would have?
Well, yes, well, they always say, we love the rushes, we love the dailies. Mm-hmm. What you are doing is great, but can you do it cheaper?
Cheaper?
Yeah.
It's always
faster.
It's always over money, is it?
Oh, it only.
Yeah.
I think that in this article, I don't remember because it was quite a while ago when I read it. I read it in the manuscript form, which was long ago. But I think Kenneth Tynan mentioned that once I was worried. I had the exactly same problem during the shooting of Rosemary's Baby. Mm-hmm. And I met Otto Preminger on the lot of Paramount, and he asked me what I was worried about. And I told him, and he said, but they never fired director for going over budget. And I said, but they fired many directors before. He said, yes, for lousy dailies, for lousy results, but never for going over budget. They try to press you this way. And I thought back, and indeed, I thought of histories where, of cases when directors were replaced. It always happens over, so since then I'm not worried about it. And if they take it away, I can do another film, better one maybe.
But wouldn't it kill you to have a film taken away 2/3 finished like this?
It would kill me some time ago, but not now, you see. I think you become less sensitive from film to film because you know the agony of it. People think one exaggerates when you're using such a word, but it is an agony to go through a film because unfortunately, you see, most of films are done this way. I mean, most of films go over budget. Most of any enterprises go over budget. Probably the skyscraper right behind here went over budget because it's very difficult to foresee exactly what materials, how many working hours you need, etc., etc. Particularly in the film, each film is a new experience. It's not even a skyscraper when you can measure the blocks of steel, etc. So I always, and it always turns out to be a bit better than I was anticipating. And to make it better, it costs more money. You understand what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
on each level, there's a little bit more I can do to it.
Yeah. But I think you'd want some kind of guarantee that 2/3 of your movie isn't going to be taken over by somebody else who's going to finish it and call it.
Well, people
Polanski's
who give the money for the film, they are giving this money because of me. Yeah. I managed through these years of struggle to create this situation which is quite convenient for me, that people think that my movie is going to be a success. The people who are interested only in the profit of it. So they, in a sense, they buy me as a director. They buy me.
Yeah,
sure. Not Shakespeare. You know, when I said I wanted to do Shakespeare, they think it was a disease. They thought I went crazy.
Yeah?
You know, yes. My own agent said, "What are you doing to me?"
Why did they feel that mostly? Did they think that a man who wasn't born speaking English
they
shouldn't...
say, "Raman, baby, you know Shakespeare's a poison to the box office."
Yeah? That voice sounded very familiar. Who was that?
That's the voice of Hollywood.
Oh, yes, I knew him. I'd know him anywhere.
Would sound better with a thick cigar.
Yeah. Props. You know, people are always analyzing you because of your work, Noel, and I've been reading about you a lot. Do you hate that? Yeah.
No, I don't. They're free to analyze. I don't like to analyze myself.
You don't like to analyze yourself. Does it bother you when other people do, when they say, in this part of the movie we can see Polanski's childhood?
Oh, that's wonderful. Let them do it.
Yeah.
Creates the legend, you know, and then it's easy to get money to make a movie.
But your own life has such dramatic, your own childhood has such dramatic things in it. I mean, I was reading about it. I can't imagine, first of all, I don't think that anybody who hasn't lived through Europe during the war can have any idea what it was like. I'm sure I can't. And the things that have happened to you, you've been very close to death twice as a kid. I'm thinking of the one incident where you were on the hillside picking the berries. Could you tell that?
Well, I was close to death many times, but there's no point of lamenting myself, you know, about my childhood. Just think of any child in India now, Pakistan, or in Vietnam. I mean, we just don't have contact with these people, and you're lucky to meet one that went through things like that. You see?
You're lucky to
get one who went through things like these people whom you will never meet.
Yeah.
You know, what did you want to know about it?
I wanted to hear the story that happened to you when you were on the hillside as a kid. And
that was one of the more innocent. Yeah, I like this story. I mean, I was picking berries. I was living in a country since I escaped from the ghetto just before the liquidation. My mother was taken.
This is Warsaw or?
No, that was Krakow.
Krakow.
Krakow. Okay. It wasn't as terrible as in Warsaw. You see, in Warsaw, people were virtually dying in the ghetto. The Krakow ghetto was liquidated before they started dying of starvation, so they were sent to the concentration camps. My mother was taken first, and about a month later, I escaped because we knew they were going to liquidate it. My father cut the wires. It was quite easy to get out of the ghetto. There was no problem. The problem was to survive outside of it. So he'd cut the wires about 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the morning, or maybe early, I don't remember. It was very early. We could see Germans coming because they used the soldiers for liquidation and sending people to the concentration camp. And that was the last time I saw him. And first I stayed with some family, some friends of my father's, and subsequently friends with this family friends, and eventually with people I don't know. And then I ended up in the country. It was my first contact with the country. I was then 7½. And I lived in the country for a few years with the Catholic family. It was very backward group of people, but they were quite good to me. They were not like the people in Painted Bird, which if you didn't read, I suggest you do, because it's very similar to childhood. And there were no Germans there. Once I was walking and picking berries, and I saw some Germans on German soldiers on the cart, horse cart.
You saw them on
the cart, and I just ignored it. And then I heard a whistle of the bullet. It was the first time I heard something. And then I heard the clap of the explosion. And then I looked in that direction, and I saw that they were aiming at me. They were just shooting. It had nothing to do with me. They just let out the shot. That's all.
Just for fun.
I don't know why you picked that, and I don't know why Kenneth Tyner just picked it. I went in much more drastic situations. I was bombed, and people tried to kill me, and I went through many things like that. I don't know, this is just innocent thing. Which is, I mean, I don't know how many things like that happened to you. Maybe you walked, there was a flower pot which fell behind you, you didn't hear it because there was a bus passing at the same time, and you didn't hear the noise splash.
Not even that. To my innocent life, that little story you told us is a dramatic incident.
To me, much more dramatic incident when I was in the ghetto.
Yeah.
I saw, it was just before the liquidation, they were taking parts of people away, and I saw a group of old women being led somewhere by German soldiers. And most of them were old, but not all of them. One was very old and could hardly walk, and she was sort of staggering behind. And this German officer was pushing them. I was on the other side of the street. He was pushing her and shouting at her in German. And suddenly he drew a gun and shot her in her back, and this blood exploded. It was all so fast, and this woman fell down. I ran into a doorway and hid myself under the stairs and stayed there for maybe an hour. That was really shocking and terrible experience in my life. Not this one when they were shooting at me. I was running very fast afterwards. But here I saw something. You see, I was for the first time in my life, I was there maybe 7 or something like that, or 7.5. I don't remember exactly the period of it in the ghetto. But it was the first time that something like that happened that scared me so much that I couldn't forget it for years afterwards.
I see what you mean, the contrast
You understand?
between that and the
It's
other thing.
much more frightening when you see something than when it happens to you.
Who could you go to explain that sort of thing to you? Who did you say? Did you assume that's the way the world was, that people shot people constantly, tried to kill people all the time?
Well, I think that...
Or did you know that you were going through a particularly bad part of the world?
Well, you see, child accepts everything. And that's just the reality. You can bring up a child in a white room, and he will accept it as a reality, whatever you do to him. Throughout the war, I ate boiled flour with some milk sometimes for 3 years, and I thought that was the normal food. I liked it. Sometimes I could have some sugar or saccharin on it or anything. But there was something like I wasn't particularly unhappy about this part of it. I know now that people kill and do wars because they like it. I mean, that's the thing which we have to face. That's part of human nature. That's evolutionary. We are built this way. And there's the other part of human beings, the civilized mind, which rebels against this thing. But this is inherent. There would not be wars if people didn't want wars. You wouldn't be able to have a war if people didn't want wars. People enjoy killing. People enjoy fighting.
But what I wondered was, did you know that there was a world, did you know that there was somebody your age, me, growing up somewhere else in the world in a completely
I remember,
peaceful...
I'll tell you how, I'll tell you another episode will explain it exactly, how I felt.
Okay.
About 2 years later, 3 years later, when I was living in the country, I was picking this berry again because that's all I could do, pick berries or mushrooms or things like that, and help with harvest. But it was very little harvest because they had only an acre and a half for the whole family. It was hardly anything to eat. Potatoes and flour that we would grind, hand mill, if you want. I don't know how it's called, kind of stone, you know, anyway.
For berries, a press or something.
Not berries, for grain.
Oh, for
to
grain,
make flour.
a mill, yeah, a small mill.
Small mill.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was picking these berries, and it was towards the end of the war. It was 1944, I think. Summer, very, very hot on the hill. Summer in Poland is very hot, winter very cold. It's like in Canada, sort of, or even New York. And I was I was in a little wood, birchwood, and all noise you could hear was this, you know, this summer noise of the insects. And suddenly I heard a different noise, like, I couldn't understand what it was. And then I thought maybe it's an airplane. And I looked up and I saw this hundreds of American planes just going east, you know, and then there's a new noise came, you know, and I could see the explosions, the German artillery fighting. This was one of the most beautiful moments of my life, when I sometimes hear this noise, you know, it was bringing such a hope, you know, such expectations for something to come. And I was just hoping that no one of these planes will explode. And they did occasionally, you know, and then you could see the white parachute, you know, going. And then I was hoping that he will come over this way, you know, the man on the parachute. Yeah. I'll be able to talk to him. It was a moving experience. Yeah. It was beautiful. This noise is very important for me, and I used it in one film. As a matter of fact, I used it in Macbeth. Nobody will know what
You'll know what moment it was. Yeah. Wow. Here we are. Greetings, Mr. Hitchcock.
How do you do?
Very nice to see you.
I thought that would make a very pleasant murder weapon. The mower, I mean.
The mower? You mean we've given you an idea
No,
for your...
you get the victim to lie on his back.
Yes.
And then mow the hair off his chest first. Then stamp on him.
Oh, I see. How did you acquire this turn of mind? You look like such a pussycat.
I think my mother scared me when I was 3 months old.
You
You see, she said, boo. It gave me the hiccups.
Yes?
And she apparently was very satisfied. All mothers do it, you know. That's how fear starts in everyone.
Well, that's an interesting insight into psychology. I didn't realize that.
Weren't you ever booed at by your mother?
I've been booed at ever since. Not necessarily that way. You know, I was just looking over the incredible list of your films. The Truffaut book that delighted film people when it came out. And the 39 Steps and The Lady Vanishes and Notorious and The Paradine Case and Spellbound and Saboteur and Rebecca. And there are many that I didn't know about. Most of us know of Rope and Strangers on a Train and Rear Window and Trouble with Harry and Psycho and Vertigo and The Wrong Man and all of those. But you made some very early films that are seldom, if ever, seen. Do you have one way back there that would be
Oh, yes.
a
There
favorite?
was one called The Lodger, all about Jack the Ripper.
That's right.
You know why Somebody wants to be ripped.
In this neighborhood, they may be, but...
Well, that was the case in London in the 1890s when Jack the Ripper roamed around. And, well, he just took that knife out and placed it abdomonically and slit.
Yes. And there were several films about Jack the Ripper, and in fact a couple named The Lodger. But yours was yours
They
in the
were
30s?
all copies of the first one.
Yeah.
I made mine in 1926.
1926.
When I was the boy director, which of course I still am now. But
Yes, and one of the best boy directors we have. Are you still afraid of the police?
terrified of the police. Terrified.
Can you explain where that begins?
I think it was when I was a child of 5. My father sent me with a note to the local chief of police for a minor. I must admit a minor misdemeanor.
Yes.
And I was placed in a cell for 5 minutes. Now, psychiatrists say that if you can trace the origin of your fear, it will disappear. The whole thing is a confounded lie, because I still have it.
And it's never left you from that day?
Never left me.
What sensation do you get? Do you still, if you see a police car, get frightened?
I would say mild apprehension.
I see. Yeah. There are a couple of words that people need to know to understand all about you and your films, and one of them is a MacGuffin. Can you explain what a MacGuffin is?
Yes, a MacGuffin you see in most films about spies. It is a thing that the spies are after. In the days of Rudyard Kipling, it would be the plans of the fort on the Khyber Pass. Mm-hmm. It would be the plans of an airplane engine and the plans of an atom bomb, anything you like. It's always called the thing that the characters on the screen worry about, but the audience don't care. Mm-hmm. And someone asked, what is a MacGuffin? And it's described in a scene in an English train going to Scotland, and one man says to the other opposite him, he said, what's that package above your head there? And the other man said, oh, that's a MacGuffin. He said, well, what is a MacGuffin? He said, well, it's an apparatus for trapping lions in the Scottish Highlands. The man said, but there are no lions in the Scottish Highlands. He said, then that's no MacGuffin.
Thank you for clearing that up for us.
Yes.
And you adopted that word as the thing, the letters, the plans.
It's a thing that the spies are always after.
You did a movie that would have seemed impossible because some of the actors had to be birds. In fact, a great deal of them. I often wonder if you had to spread newspapers everywhere in the making of that film. I mean, it seems like such an enormous problem to take on, to do a film where you needed birds.
Rather, yes.
Did you ever think you should turn back, that it was going to be too hard?
No, because I purposely didn't advise the technical department what would be necessary. Otherwise, they would have said impossible. But I think about 3,200 birds were trained, and the ravens were the cleverest.
They're very smart birds.
Very smart birds, indeed.
What was the hardest thing to get the birds to do in that film?
I don't think anything was really very difficult. You know, the seagulls were the most vicious.
Were they?
Yes. Yeah. The hardest thing was to try and persuade them not to be so vicious.
What psychology do you use on a seagull?
Birdseed.
Okay. And there was the one scene where the bird swooped down and took a piece of a forehead out of
the girl?
Out of one of your actresses.
Well,
yes.
If I can give away a trade secret.
Please do.
That's what we call a double printing job. The girl was sat in a boat with a tube of compressed air run up her back into her hair, and at a crucial point, a jet of air was blown which blew her hair up. Mm-hmm. Then on a separate film, we took a picture of a gull sweeping down, and then the two were put together, and it swooped down at that crucial point.
It's fun to know how those things work. It's amazing.
Yes.
You've accomplished. I hope we can talk about more of them during the evening. Mr. Hitchcock, let me ask you a bit about your thoughts on violence on the screen and all that. It's interesting because that clip we showed from Psycho was from a film that was edited quite a bit when it was shown on primetime television. Some of the scenes were considered some moments of scenes were considered too awful to show.
In those days.
How do you feel about that?
Well, there's more permissiveness today, but don't forget that's 10 years ago. Things were quite different then.
You think if they showed Psycho now, they would be able to show every scene that you shot?
Oh, I think so, without a question, sure.
Really? I doubt that, because they were rather worried that we were showing anything tonight from that.
Well, there's a different approach for television. than there is for movies.
Oh, yes, I meant on television. That on television they edit.
No. Television, the same conditions apply today.
Still, yeah, I see. I didn't make that.
But I'm surprised, really, that in English television, when I was over there, they allow a certain amount of nudity on English television.
Complete nudity on English television.
Yes, considering the weather over there, I'm surprised.
They must heat the studios somewhere. Because I know what you mean about it. But
Somebody
it's true.
asked me the other day, how long did I think nudity would last on the screen? And if you wouldn't think me too vulgar in saying, I said that all breasts sag eventually.
You have research to prove that?
No, I'm afraid I don't. No.
In that scene from Psycho, you had a curious effect that it seemed that Balsam seemed to be almost floating backwards, which added to the horror of it a bit. It was like a dream. He seemed to be almost in slow motion a bit as he fell backwards. And I realized the second time I saw it that was where part of the fright came from.
Well, the point is that if a person falls, they are fighting the fall. I mean, they don't just drop back. You know, if you're falling back, there's an effort to prevent it. And I think you get that effect there.
But didn't you do something special in the shooting of that, or did you have him suspended?
Oh, well, it was a double printed thing.
It was.
He didn't fall down a single stair. He sat in a very comfortable chair and just lay there like that.
Is that right?
Yes, we made the background first of moving down.
I'd love to know how you did. I've done all of those things. A lot of the answers are in the
actors
Truffaut.
earn their money, you see.
Yeah.
By not having to do the things they're supposed to do.
You called actors cattle once in your career and offended a few of them.
Well, I think at the time, I said, I was accused of calling actors cattle, and I said that I would never say such an unfeeling, rude thing about actors at all. What I probably said was that all actors should be treated like cattle.
I see. And you went on to do that.
In a nice way, of course.
Yes. Fed them at the right hours and brushed them occasionally. Well, I know you, one actress got you for that somehow. She once had some cattle brought onto a set or something.
That was the famous Carol Lombard.
Carol Lombard,
yes.
Yeah.
And she was a woman with a great sense of humor. And I arrived on the set the first day of shooting, and she'd had a corral built. And in it were 3 live calves with the names of the actors on big discs round their necks.
You know, it is, in finding out some of the things that you've done, reading about them and all, it's amazing how much is the director's work and how little the actors are needed. And in a way, there's a devastating example you gave from a Russian filmmaker, Pudovkin. It had to do with the actor's face and then the...
If I may interrupt you a moment, Walt Disney had the right idea. If he didn't like the actors, he tore them up.
But you talked about the Russian filmmaker.
The power of film. That's how strong film can be. Yeah. Well, I did the production section for Encyclopedia Britannica for the last edition. And in it, I describe a scene such as in the picture Rear Window, where you have James Stewart, a close-up of him, and he looks, you see, and you cut, we'll say, for example, a woman nursing a baby. Now you go back to Mr. Stewart, and he smiles. So what have you demonstrated? That he's a nice, benevolent gentleman. Now take the middle piece of film away. He looks, he sees. Now cut to a girl in a bikini, and he smiles. Now he's a dirty old man.
And it's the exact same smile.
Exact same smile, the same look. The subject is changed.
And you said that there's even a more dramatic example. That was the Russian filmmaker who showed an actor's face and then a dead baby, and then the actor's face, and then a bowl of soup, and then the actor's face. And in each case, it was the same shot of the actor's face, but in the one seemed to be sorrow, and the other seemed to be hunger.
Hunger, that's quite true, yes.
So you could get an Academy Award performance for an actor with only one shot of him, really.
Well, I did it years ago with an actress, And I found her very difficult. And I did all her close-ups and said, look here, look there, look down, look across, move around.
And go home.
And then you may go home. And I brought in another actress, and I used all her hands, and she was cutting meat, and it was the prelude to a murder scene.
And you just put everything around it?
I used the hands only, yes.
Gee. Is there a scene you wouldn't do over again? Are you sorry you did some? I'm thinking of one specifically, the boy with the bomb.
Well, that was because I made the terrible mistake of having a boy carry a bomb across the city. Mm-hmm. You, the audience, knew that it was a bomb. And I built it up and up until the various clocks and all the hold-ups. And you knew it was going to go off at 1 o'clock, but I let the clocks go 1 minute past 1, 2 minutes, and worked the audience up. And then I let the bomb go off. And he was on a bus, and it blew the whole thing completely. And I remember I was at the press show, and a woman critic came up with both raised fists and said, how dare you do a thing like that? Even a hard-boiled critic was taken away with the whole thing. I'd made the mistake in not relieving them at the end of the suspense. In other words, if you put an audience through the mill like that, you must relieve it. The bomb must be found and quickly thrown out of the window. Then it goes off out there, and the audience are relieved.
And if you had it to do over again?
I'd never let the bomb go off.
What would you do with the rest of the movie?
Well, I mean, well, that wouldn't be the last scene in the movie.
No, that's true. But was it also because a child was killed in the scene that they thought it was too brutal?
No, I don't think that's the reason. I think the reason is that an audience gets worked up.
Yeah.
And they need relief. For example, if anybody goes on a roller coaster, they scream, it goes down the big dip and up and around, they're screaming all the time, but always get off giggling.
Yeah.
Or you go to the midway and you pay money to go into the haunted house, and skeletons jump up and the floor does all kinds of things, but they always come out giggling. Now the question, why do people pay money to be scared?
Do you know the answer?
Of course not. I earn my living doing it.
Mr. Hitchcock, you've kept us in suspense through 2 commercials. How did you manage to get a shot where the view inside the cockpit went all the way down to the ocean, into the ocean, and the water came in?
Very simple. You heard of rear projection.
Yeah, when they show the picture on the back of a screen.
Show the picture on the back and you play the scene in front of the screen. Well, I had a test pilot go out off Santa Monica and dive with a camera on the front of the plane toward the ocean, pull out at the last minute. Then I had 6 screens made, 8 feet wide, 6 feet high, built the cockpit, put the pilots in, and then the screen, made of rice paper. Behind the screen were 2 what we call dump tanks with chutes. These tanks are filled with 2,700 gallons of water each. And all I had to do was press a button. And as I looked at the screen, the moment we touched water, I pressed the button and the water shot right through the screen, tore it to ribbons, and all the water came in over the pilots. That's very simple.
The screen that there you go. Get a hand for solving that problem. The screen that was being projected on of the ocean coming up then actually was the screen that burst and the water came out. And nobody
it was made
knew
of rice paper, you see?
That's
so
ingenious.
Water, 2 chutes came right at it.
You've done a lot of things like that, and I think that would be part of the fun, would be solving those undoable problems.
Sure it was, yes.
Yeah. Can you give away any secrets of your theory of scaring people? The psycho shower scene made many women afraid to take a shower in a house where they were alone for years, some to this day.
Well, I had a letter from a man who said that my daughter, after she saw the French film Diabolique, would never take a tub anymore because they had a scene with a man coming out of a tub and taking his eyes out, some horror scene.
Yeah.
He said, and after seeing that, she'd never take a tub. Now, having seen Psycho, she won't take a shower. As a result, she's very unpleasant to be around. So I replied, I said, dear sir, send her to the dry cleaners.
I was wondering what your theory is of how to make a scene as scary as you did that. Without getting too technical, but a lot of film students are watching, because there are a lot of them around the country and colleges. Yeah, the average movie, I think I've read, is made up of about 600 separate shots. Would that be true?
Well, the shower scene in Psycho, the knife never touched the body at all. It was just this fast cutting from one thing to another, the knife coming at the camera and so forth. Actually, the property people at the studio made me a lovely torso with pink rubber, and it was all tubed inside with blood. So that if you took a knife and stabbed this rubber torso, blood would spurt out immediately. But I never used it. It was all unnecessary, because the cutting of the knife, the girl's face and the feet and everything was so rapid that there were 78 separate pieces of film in 45 seconds.
So the fear came from the putting together
Yes,
later,
sure.
not anything.
Well, anything that you can involve an audience so close is much better than seeing it from a distance. I think there's nothing more boring than a barroom brawl in a Western. What do? Break up a lot of furniture and a lot of bottles on the shelf.
Right.
But if you took the audience right in and got an impression of a face, a hand, an arm, and feet and everything, you'd involve the audience much closer with it.
Yeah, there are stories of people who said to you, aren't you going to show the whole room when they built an elaborate set? And you said, I think the stripes on the policeman's arm are enough to show that we're in a police station.
Well, you don't have to show the whole room.
And it also, you need a long shot for certain effects.
If you want to show, we'll say, loneliness, then you have one figure alone in a room. I remember in the film Rebecca, the young girl there was brought to a big house. She was very scared. So naturally, when she walked into this big room, you made her small, deliberately, you see. In fact, to make her feel afraid, I even had a fan blow her hair slightly, even though the windows weren't open.
Gee, that is interesting. You wanted the effect even though it wouldn't be realistic.
That's right.
Totally
yes,
realistic.
Sure.
And I gather you would never shoot from, sometimes in a movie you'll see the cameras inside the fireplace behind the flames.
Oh, that's charming, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's putting the audience out of the frying pan into the fire.
You'd never do that.
Never.
Why? What does that violate?
Well, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Nobody can get inside the fire, they'll get burnt. It doesn't make sense. All those things are quite silly to me.
Yeah. And yet some of them are still done, even though they haven't...
Well, look at the movies you see today where they put flowers in the foreground, so blurred and out of focus, you don't know what it is. Quite unnecessary.
I saw a Western like that, where about 9 scenes in a row started with a little cactus flower in the close-up and the rider in the distance.
Well, was the story about a cactus flower?
No, but that's the point, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Sure.
Hitchcock, did you have any feelings about working with big stars as opposed to unknown faces in the films? Many of your films, of course, had Ingrid Bergman and Cary Grant and people like Claude Rains.
Function for the story. I don't mind one way or the other. But I think the good cast that fits the story is what you see, because we have so few stars today. And the star doesn't necessarily guarantee you success anymore.
Doesn't guarantee success at the box office.
It used to be regarded as insurance, you see.
Yes.
That doesn't apply today. People don't like the picture, it doesn't matter who's in it, they won't go.
I read somewhere once that you'd made a remark that romantic man and romantic lady leading roles, the people who play those are inevitably very much in love with each other by the time
Well, that's because, one hears of so many multiple marriages in Hollywood, you know, women have had 4 husbands and vice versa.
Yeah.
And I think it's really because they meet in a love scene in a picture and they bring it to life and truth after 6 o'clock, in the dressing room preferably.
Have you ever caught them doing this?
No, not myself, because I like to be home at 6 o'clock.
Oh, I see.
But they apparently don't.
But you
But
suspect
I think
it.
that's one of the reasons why you find multiple marriages in Hollywood. You know, every man has been married about 2 or 3 times. That's because he meets a different woman every film that comes along.
Are you suggesting that Grace Kelly then was in love with James Stewart, and then with Cary Grant, and then with, who else was there? Ray Milland, and...
Well, I wouldn't particularize on it, because
For obvious
I'm
reasons.
generalizing.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And he's not an army man either.
Who?
Generalizing.
Oh, generalizing, no. Oh. That's... You like all kinds of horror, don't you? Bad puns and...
Not bad pun. Puns are the highest form of literature.
There are those who would agree with you. I think I'm one of them, actually. Puns are good. Are there films you wouldn't do over again? Some people have been very hurt to find when Rope was their favorite picture, and that body in the trunk, and the young men giving a dinner party with the body in the trunk and all that appealed to so many people as a mystery, as a frightening film. And they're disappointed to hear that you wouldn't do it the way you did it if you had it to do it again.
Oh, yes, I would. Yes, that'll be shown on TV very soon.
Mm-hmm. But I mean,
Hasn't been shown as yet.
you did the astounding thing of doing the movie in 20-minute takes.
Well, that was because it was a
or something.
theater piece. And I was trying to get some movement into what is really a theater piece.
Yeah.
So we followed the actors all around, and it was a prodigious job of production because walls had to slide away to let the camera go through, and all kinds of things. I remember the opening shot, we had this set, and it was a sort of a penthouse room, and we built a great big panorama of New York in miniature form, not just a painted backing. And then we had a dining room and a kitchen. I remember the opening scene took 750 feet without a cut, starting with the murder of the boy, following the 2 through into the dining room, into the kitchen, and you hold your breath right the way through for fear something may go wrong.
You, the director.
And they got some champagne and brought it back, and as the camera came back, I said, my God, thank goodness this shot's over. And as we panned round, there's an electrician standing there, right in the window.
Oh, and you couldn't rewrite the film to allow for that.
Start all over again.
I guess that's why they said you were crazy to try it, because what the average take in a film is how many seconds or how many
It
feet?
could be half a minute,
And you
2
did-
minutes,
You did 20-minute takes, I
10,
believe?
10 or 11 minute takes.
10 or 11, which is unheard of until you did it. I guess I'm fascinated with those technical things and how you did them. You told Truffaut a story about the glass of milk in Suspicion.
In Suspicion, yes, Cary Grant is suspected of being a murderer. And there's a very high shot of a hallway, and he's bringing her what you, the audience, know to be the fatal glass of milk. And he brings it all the way up, and it comes round the circular staircase until it comes right into the camera. Well, so that glass of milk stood out very clearly, I put a little lamp inside the milk.
A little light bulb?
Yes, with a little battery. So the milk glowed all the way up. It's sort of enhancing the poison.
Yes. It's amazing. Didn't you once almost persuade Garbo to come out of retirement for a film?
No, I didn't. No, I couldn't persuade myself to do that.
Wait, did you try once?
No, never, no.
I thought there was some talk that she might have played in one of your films at one.
No, the only trouble is, well, obviously with Garbo, you couldn't find a subject where she could be alone.
All right. Do you invent those little moments that are going to live with people for years? I know anyone who ever saw Spellbound remembers the fork on the tablecloth making the parallel
Yes,
lines,
that's right.
or the glass snapping in the hand of the man who, in Rope, when he's under pressure, the crystal glass
Yes.
snaps and breaks his hand, breaks his skin.
Well, there touches it. In Spellbound, the whole thing was the lines, which eventually paid off as ski lines, which solved the whole problem.
Yeah. I don't know there's so many. You never wanted to make a Western?
No, I don't know much about Westerns. I like to know all the details, It's like costume pictures. I'm no good at costume pictures, and to me, nobody in a costume picture ever goes to the toilet.
During the break in the studio, someone asked Mr. Hitchcock what the ending of The Birds meant. And you made a very bold statement, I thought. You said you had no idea.
Well, the point was, where do you end? Had I gone further with it, then the next shot would have been the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, covered in birds. And I fought shy of doing that because I thought, wherever we're going to get that number of birds from?
Yes. And then the residuals would have been enormous to all those birds.
For each bird, of
That's
course.
right.
Yeah.
Has there been anything that they told you just couldn't do, that you wanted to do, and they wouldn't let you, either for censorship purposes in a film?
No, I'm much too respectable
I see.
to be involved in anything so sordid as that.
Of course, I should have known before asking. Is there anything, though, that you haven't done that you really want to get yet? Is there anything that you'd like to experiment with the camera, with suspense, or something that you've
No,
never gotten to try?
I wait till the subject comes along and then tackle it from there on,
'Cause
Every subject brings new challenges.
yeah. If you had to take one of your films, if they said, I'm sorry, there are too many films in the world and we're going to have to select one from each director and destroy the rest, could you instantly go to one of your films?
That I prefer, you mean? Well, of course, it's always the last one, but that's too conventional an answer. Now, a film I made years ago called Shadow of a Doubt, I liked very much. Because it was true, it was a character picture, and it was a family in a northern Californian town, and beloved Uncle Charlie comes to stay with them. And what the family don't know is that Uncle Charlie is a mass murderer, murdered many women. So the suspense is, how long will it be before the family find out the truth?
It's a good one.
They never do.
I think Notorious is one that I can watch every time it's on television, and there doesn't seem to be anything wrong with that film, and it was made quite a number of years ago.
1944, and that's where I put in uranium as the MacGuffin.
Yes? We all remember that word, boys and girls?
A year before Hiroshima.
Yeah, and no one could figure out later how you did that, because when you see the film now, you take the atom bomb for granted, but there was not an atom bomb, and no one knew
it was
uranium.
in the course of manufacture. And I went with the writer Ben Hecht, because one had read of the Germans experimenting with heavy water in Norway and that sort of thing. And I went with Ben Hecht, the writer, to Caltech, and we walked into the office of Dr. Millikan, a famous professor there, and said, how big would an atom bomb be? And there was silence, and then he spent an hour telling us how impossible the whole thing was. And I understand I was watched by the FBI for 3 months afterwards.
Then how did you know to use uranium if they denied
Well,
everything?
I knew that uranium, Lord Rutherford split the atom in 1920, and I knew that would be the way in which the atom bomb would be made. Then I heard of a place in New Mexico where men went in and never came out again.
Where is that?
Alamogordo, of course.
Yeah.
And the first bomb was shot off.
And you knew that did you know that within a year there would be an atom bomb? Just by the
Well, I
surmise?
didn't know when, but I knew it was possibly coming. And the producer didn't believe in it. He said, I think that's a lot of nonsense. I said, you're worrying about the MacGuffin. I said, this is a love story between Ingrid Bergman and Cary Grant. But don't worry about it. If you don't like uranium, we'll make it industrial diamonds. And years afterwards, when the film was shown in Germany, he said to me, he said, you know, those Germans are very clever. Now that uranium is out of date, they've changed it to narcotics.
Really? Gee. When you were a kid, what were you like? Were you...
Nice.
Were you? Were you a sweet boy? Were you popular?
Very quiet.
Did you have a lot of
very
friends?
dignified. Kept to myself.
Didn't have a lot of little friends?
No, never fought other boys.
No?
Was very diligent. And which reminds me, may I tell you a story?
Yes.
About a nice little boy. His father managed to get him into the best school in England, Eton College. You've heard of that. Father went to visit him after a week, and the boy was scratched and bruised. Terrible state. He said, what happened? He said, they don't like me here, Father. They call me a dirty little Jew. He said, don't you fight back. They'll throw you out of the school. Keep away from them. He waits a week, visits the boy again, and he's still badly cut up. He said, they still calling you that? He said, yes, Father. He said, you tell them that Jesus Christ was a Jew, and that'll stop them. He said, all right, Father. Goes away. Third week, he got 2 black eyes. He said, what, they're still calling you that? He said, didn't you tell them what I told you to tell them? He said, I tried to, Father, but I forgot the gentleman's name.
That's a story I have never heard and would not expect to hear anywhere else.
I think it's a charming story, myself.
Yeah, it's a nice story. It pulls in several directions. That reminds me of something. I don't know if you know that I know this or if you even remember it, but someone who works for me once had a friend who called you from a magazine to interview you, and he asked you if you were Catholic because he said, we're the Catholic Digest, let's say, it was the magazine's name, and we want to do an article about you. And you said, what is the circulation? That's a very funny story.
Is it? Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. You can't always tell by the amount of laughter. But did you ever tell the man once he told you what the circulation was?
I told him, yes. I was Jesuit educated.
Yeah.
And that's where I learned about fear.
You were terrorized by your teachers.
They scared the hell out of me.
How did they do
Very
it?
strict.
Did they threaten physical violence on you?
Oh, no. But it's just the way you're brought up.
And how would they frighten you if you didn't do your lessons properly? If you were not obedient, what bothered them?
Well, there were certain punitive measures, may I call them, taken.
Physical.
Physical.
Yeah.
Not desperately physical, but enough to deter one in future occasions.
At that age.
At that age, yes.
Someone asked during the break what you did with the dummy film. You said it's floating in the bathtub at home.
That's right.
Sure. You have a reputation for being a practical joker. Is this true?
Yes, I used to, but I find that people don't have the same sense of humor anymore. I once gave a dinner party, many years ago, where all the food was blue. Everything was blue.
Well, I don't exactly see how you'd get an idea like that.
I gave the dinner, it was blue.
Sandwiches, dessert, everything?
Oh, no, it was a full meal. It was chicken soup, blue trout, blue chicken, and blue ice cream. And when you broke open your roll, the bread was blue inside.
Did you explain this, or did you just not comment on it?
Not comment on it at all.
How far? That's terrific in a way that I can't explain.
Well, I once gave a dinner party for my wife. Do you know Chasen's restaurant out in Hollywood? He had a back garden in those days. We had a table for 14 people. And I got Central Casting to give me an aristocratic old lady. We had her hair done beautifully, dressed her well, and sat her at the head of the table. And the guests arrived and said, "Who's the old lady?" I said, "I don't know."
Oh.
I said, "I've never met her before," which was the truth. I hadn't. And the proprietor of the restaurant kept out of the way, and guests continued to arrive, and always the same question: "Who's the old lady?" I said, "I don't know, we're trying to find out." So finally the proprietor came, and I said, "Dave, go and find out who that old lady is sitting up there." And he went and bent over her, and he came back, and she said, "She's with Mr. Hitchcock's party." I said, "I've never seen her before in my life." Well, she sat there the whole meal. Drinking martinis, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Did she enjoy it?
Apparently, she had to be helped to the car.
Have you abandoned practical jokes now? Have you
More or
outgrown
less,
that?
yes, more or less.
I see. Someone asked to hear if you've ever seen a movie that thrilled you or scared you. Are you capable of being scared on the screen, or do you just know too much about how everything's done and know what's coming?
No, too much.
Do you? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Are there directors you admire?
Oh, yes, I admire men like Trooper, Buñuel. Do you know his work at all?
Yes.
Oh, yes, there are a lot of fine directors.
Orson Welles?
Yes, he's famous for one big film, Citizen Kane.
What will you do next?
I'm the subject.
You don't have now.
I'm looking for another body. When we find that, then the story will take its course. I wanted once to do a scene for North by Northwest, by the way. And I couldn't get it in there. I wanted it to be in Detroit. And two men walking along in front of an assembly line.
Yes.
And behind them you see the automobile being put together. It starts with a frame, and you just take the camera along, the two men are talking, and you know all those cars are eventually driven off the line. They load them with gas and everything. And one of the men goes forward. Mind you, you've seen a car from nothing, just a frame. Opens the door, and a dead body falls out.
I know that'll be fascinating because we were talking when the show started. I didn't even realize we had begun. Are you two childhood buddies? Grew up in the same neighborhood?
He wasn't in my neighborhood.
Where did it all begin?
I certainly wasn't in his. No.
No, in fact, you were, well, it isn't a case of the prince and the pauper exactly, but you had very different backgrounds.
In a way, we have quite different backgrounds. I come from Lower East Side, New York, and parents worked in the garment district. And
was your father a pants presser?
women's dresses, you know, those big irons with the springs, all that sort of thing. My mother was the, they call them operators, sewing machines. And most of the family went into that business, you know, working that way.
Whereas Brian was born in
Newark, New Jersey.
New Jersey.
Yes, but we moved to Philadelphia when I was about 6. My father's an orthopedic surgeon, and my mother sent me to dancing school, so it's a lot different.
Big difference.
There were no dancing schools in the Lower East Side.
No, dancing, running schools.
You learned to run.
Running, moving around.
So obviously, everybody who ever interviews you, Brian, has probably made the connection between your father being a surgeon and the blood in your films.
You mean the Butcher of Ballackinwood?
Is that what he was called?
Yes. No.
No, I mean, you did watch Operations as a child, so it would take only an amateur psychiatrist to say that's where he got his obsession with...
No, it wasn't an obsession, it was fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it was very interesting, seeing things sewed up and arms and hands and I found it fascinating.
You might have made these very same films you have made without having had a father who was a surgeon.
Well, I think the difference basically is the fact that I have a very high tolerance for blood, unlike my associate here, who, you know, fingernail, he'll go crazy, pass out.
I pass out. Yeah. Not other people's blood, not other people, just my own when it's being taken from them. I don't like that.
But in Taxi Driver, there's a good deal of gore, and
there's a lot of that. There's blood. If there's no blood in the last waltz, but there's a lot of red.
Yes.
Doesn't count.
No, it doesn't. It's a different thing.
Is there any generalization you can make about why kids with varying backgrounds like yours grew up to be movie directors? We know that all comedians are unhappy children, we're always told. Are all film directors something?
Persistent?
Persistent is right.
Persistent. Yeah. Sibling rivalry in my case.
It could be the same here.
Yes, he has older brothers. Older brother?
Older brother, yeah, older brother, same thing.
Two.
Same thing.
Two
he has two,
brothers.
I have one.
Yes.
But why film directing? Now, I would love to be a film director, but it has always occurred to me that you would have to know so much about so many impossible to master crafts that how does anybody have the nerve to do it? And as a kid, can you conceive of what film directing is like?
I don't think it's as difficult as that, really, because anybody that, you know, uses a camera or, you know, takes pictures, I mean, once you sort of get the idea of one picture after another, and then you're sort of able to tell people what to do, like I used to, at our assemblies, used to run, you know, the Friday afternoon, you know, promo for the football game or something.
Ran the projector and...
No, skits.
Oh,
I
see.
make up little skits for what was coming up on the weekend. I get all the guys together, I tell them what to do, and I'd act in them and things like that. But once you can sort of, you know, get people to do things, you know, you direct them, and then you figure out where to put the camera if you don't know anything about still photography, then it's not such a big jump from that. No?
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. He gets me that way. No, for me, it just is a, you know, a real sense of dramatics in terms of, you know, that's from real life and on theater and on the screen too. Great sense of dramatics, and then a sense of composition.
Yeah. But why not the stage? I mean, Ingmar Bergman is a stage director as well.
We grew up in the movie theaters. I think I'm speaking for myself.
Yes, no, he grew up in the movie theater.
I mean, always in the movie theater.
Maybe that's something a director.
Well,
almost
also,
every
but
director I
larger than
know
life.
has.
You want to do things large, operatic, you know. That's hard to do on the stage.
Large style, large
scale,
scale.
Canvas.
Large scale.
Yes.
Can you recall? I think I can remember the first image I ever saw on the screen. It was a charge of Indians in the movie that my parents took me to as a kid, and if that isn't the first, it's the one that I remember as the first. Does everyone remember his first film that he went to?
I remember. I saw. It wasn't my first film that I went to, but I remember very clearly watching a trailer in True Color. True Color is a two-strip form of color at the time. It was a cheap form of color, Republic Pictures. It was Roy Rogers and his horse Trigger, and he was jumping over a log. My father had taken me. Yes. You remember this, Brian? Remember? I told you this? And
jumping over a log.
Jumping over a log.
Sound
It was
exciting.
a beautiful horse, and he had all this fringe on. It just looked beautiful, you know.
Yeah.
So he's sitting there watching this, and my father said, "You know what that is? You know that's Trigger. So you know what a trigger is?" And I said, "No, it's a gun, isn't it?" He said, "No, that's the horse. It's the horse's name. I'll take you to see that next week." And I said, "Great." And from there on, I was hooked on Roy Rogers and Gene Autry and westerns. And
but at that point, did you want to make movies, or did you? I wanted to be Roy Rogers.
I don't remember
when
anything.
I saw
I think that was my first. That and being fed some baby food. I remember in a high chair. That's my first two memories.
Baby food? You can remember baby food?
Oh yeah. Maybe they fed me baby food when I was 5. I don't know, but I remember it basically. That was it.
Did you ever see Thief of Baghdad on television? I
Thief
remember
of Baghdad,
that.
I saw it, but that was I was
that
about
I remember.
6 years old, 7 years old. I saw it over and over again.
Arms coming around and stabbing.
Yeah, I remember it over and over again. And
that was
free
and
in
the
2000
spider
years,
going across the big. Beautiful film.
Someone, I believe, in that film throws a sword, and then they cut to the man who has just gone through. I think that's Thief of Baghdad.
I remember the woman with all those
Through the neck.
arms embracing and stabbing them. Oh.
I guess what I'm getting at is, as a kid, when you saw movies, did you go home and play the characters in the movies the way I did, or did you go home and play the director who makes the movies?
Always the character for me.
It was.
Yeah.
I didn't. I wasn't interested in movies when I was in high school.
Well, what hooked you, Brian? How'd you get in it?
When I got to college, I sort of got interested in theater, and they wouldn't let at Columbia, when you were an undergraduate, you couldn't direct plays. That was too sophisticated. You had to do other things. So I figured, well, maybe I could make a movie because I knew how to photograph things. And then I was allowed to do that, so I went out and got my friends, just like putting together these skits in assembly. Yeah. That's how I sort of started.
And doesn't a vast majority of the young generation want to make movies still? Isn't it still a hot thing to get into in colleges? I read something that Pauline Kael wrote about lecturing on movies at colleges, and she said a director, Kazan in fact, talked to the students about movies he had turned down. They don't offer him the kind of things he wants, and the ones they offer are no good. And she said it immediately turned the audience against him, because they said, how can we listen to a man who would turn down a chance to direct a film?
How can you direct something you want to direct?
What they want to know is, how do you get into it? I'll direct it, I'll do anything.
You have to do anything.
Maybe that's the right attitude.
You have to do anything. You have to do anything. You have to steal a camera. You have to steal film.
Right.
You have to steal money.
Right.
And I mean, you know, either you go to university. In my case, I had to go to university to be able to be allowed to use equipment. Right, Brian? You know,
Yep,
NYU. I had
that's
to,
right.
and as long as we were there to use the equipment and see some films and take the rest of the curriculum and that sort of thing, and just get that chance to work. Other kids, when I started teaching at NYU a few years later, there were a lot of my students who were very rich, and their fathers had bought them 60mm Eclair cameras and that sort of thing, and but they had no story to tell, they said. So I don't know what to do. I just don't, you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You wanted to get them by the
Dilettantes.
throat. Well, I said, no, you shoot the film. think of something, just, you know, but I couldn't, you can't do that. If they don't have it, if they don't feel like putting anything on film, what are you going to do? You know, they're not going to be able
Take
to do
their
anything.
camera away from them.
That's
and
right,
you make
we'll
the
use it.
picture.
We'll use the camera.
Right.
Yeah. Brian, you made two early films, one called Greetings and one called Hi Mom, which are shown now as retrospectives of your work, even though you're still at a very tender age, I suppose. They were early, what I think are called early low-budget features. When you look at those now, do you see a naiver De Palma? Where have you gone since then?
Well, there are many things about them which I wish I had more of in my later films, because they have a kind of spontaneity and life to them, because they're so rough. They're like almost like sketches. And
You've gotten too slick, perhaps?
That's not too slick. I got very interested in developing kind of a technique, and I went through about 6 films like that. Now I'm sort of moving back in the other direction, but I got very concerned with construction for like many films. And
It's
sort of a visualization of stories and things like that. And I sort of got away from all this sort of nutty, insane comedy that I used to do.
Yeah. Would you call that your anti-establishment period?
Not necessarily, because what the anti-establishment, the sort of Greetings era, is now very much the establishment. I think we just got older. I think that establishment, anti-establishment, became the establishment.
Who conceived the idea of a play in which the black cast attacked and raped members of the audience? That's one of the most startling. That was
and
your
I did
idea?
it because there was a play I saw at the Public Theater in which a black actor came out and insulted the audience. He just, "You white motherfucker, you're no good, you know, get out of here." You know, and I said, I could see all these white people in the front row going, "Yeah, I can't believe this." They're sitting there being insulted, abused, spit on. And they just said, "That's right, they're right. And, you know, we're no good, you're right." You know, thrown out of the theater. They loved it.
So you took the logical extension of that.
You know, it was, you know, big time Buck White, the year of those plays. You know, they just completely insulted the audience. And they just thought it was terrific.
And a lady is raped in at least one in your film instance
And
as
also,
well. It was quite an interesting experience or whatever.
Right. I go home and tell my friends.
Yeah.
That also, I had got an idea from Dionysus 69. I made a movie of Dionysus 69, which is the high point of environmental theater, where you got groped by the cast and participated in orgies. You remember that?
I never went to a theater. I don't go to any theater where the actor comes out and starts touching you and does anything to you. I don't like that.
I don't either. Are you
I don't
serious?
That's
Because
why
I
I'm
really
deadly
hate
serious
that.
about it. I don't do it. I can't. They want you to do something. I want to
You're a
know.
beautiful person.
I don't touch it. And
problem.
yeah, what I'm saying. And no, it's just a frightening thing. You have to go to a theater. You want to see a play, and then the guy comes out and
You know what the play to get you?
what? Well, no, of course not.
No, I think
sit
the
there and enjoy it. That's
proscenium
why I
ought
go
to
to
be
theater.
observed, or at least I want to have a rough idea where the
Too
audience leads off.
uptight. Too uptight. You gotta,
Only
get in
movies.
with the flow a little bit.
Only movies.
Does it mean a thing to say to the two of you? We don't have you here because you're considered opposites or anything, but can you talk about his films and can he talk about yours? And
Can we ever?
really?
Oh God.
Yes,
Brian,
because we know each other so
know each
well
other.
that we tend to be each other's toughest critics, probably.
You seriously do, and you
Oh,
can say,
absolutely.
"Boy, did
Cruel,
you blow it on that last
Cruel.
one." With.
Very cruel. Very cruel.
Very cruel.
Well, did you invite Martin to look at The Fury before?
No,
it
he
was-
didn't.
No, I didn't.
It's all right. My next film, I invited him to see The Last Waltz. He saw it. I invited him to
many
see.
Did
New
he
York, New
finally
York.
see it?
No, he saw the rough cut. He saw the rough cut. He
See,
gave me his
Marty and I have
impressions.
been on opposite coasts for
So I
in
was
a
in
lot of
New York.
editing stages. I edit in New York and he edits in California. So
He's out there
I
more,
happen
right?
to be out there a lot, but Marty hasn't been in New York a lot in the last couple of years. Would you say that?
A year and a half, 2 years. Yeah. That's
So
long.
I've missed. He's missed some of my cuts. He
I
saw
missed about 20.
Obsession.
I saw Obsession was the last rough cut I
Yeah,
saw.
the last
Where you can
Obsession.
then, if you see a rough cut, then you can talk and you could discuss things and you could suggest changes and you could be as rough as possible with some sort of result, you know? So if you see a final film, what good is it? You know, it's nice.
He's very good about that because
you know,
he lets a lot of people see his rough cuts.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
No, it's true though.
Can you think of examples of things you have changed because one of the other of you said
Sure,
I
The
would
Last
change
Waltz.
that?
The Last Waltz, Brian saw it. I only screened the film 3 times because I really liked it. I didn't want many people to take a look at it. And I had some interviews in it. And he said, listen, either you're going to put more interviews in because the guys are interesting or drop them all.
Take them out.
So I went out and I had shot another 2 days of interviews.
Rather than drop them all.
Yeah.
No, because I know they were working. Because, you know.
But do you and Spielberg and Lucas and
Steve
all of
Gosling,
these, the
George,
young mafia
George definitely.
films,
George definitely.
We
have a
all
kind
saw
of
Star Wars.
cross-fertilization or whatever?
George's wife, Marsha Lucas, edited Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, Taxi Driver in New York, New York.
Yeah.
So
It's murderous. I mean, you know, you got to be tough because you know we know each other so well. So we say exactly what we think.
And can you honestly say you don't want a friend to fail, even though supposedly we all do?
Don't want a friend to fail. God, no. I would say I would not like that group of directors to fail because I think they're so good. I mean, there are a lot of other people that can fail, but not that group. They're really good directors, and they should hopefully be successful.
You do know that phenomenon. I mean, there's some French wit who said it's not enough in life to succeed, one's friends must fail. And there's something to that, perhaps, in the show business industry.
Terrible.
Especially. Gee, I'm sorry I shocked you with that.
Let's not have him over.
But how can you can you talk about differences in the way you work? Is there something that would never happen in a De Palma film, for example?
Absolutely.
I've never seen you.
Really? I want to hear that.
You come on, he's been on my set. He's been sitting there. Sometimes we're directing scenes and he'd be watching it. But I never came to around your sets.
No.
No.
You said absolutely. What is different about the way you make a film, Brian?
Well, see, I think Marty gets these incredible performances from actors, mainly because he spends a lot of time in developing kind of very deep character relationships. My movies tend to be so much function on a kind of stylization and a kind of cinematic storytelling. They don't depend on the character scenes as much as Marty's movies do. And I wish my movies are more like Marty, and maybe in some cases Marty wishes his movies were more like mine. We have very different attitudes when we attack material.
Actors are more important to him than to you in some way.
Well, I need actors even though a lot more than Marty in some cases because I have so little character scenes that when I get in, I got to get the best performance imaginable because they're only on the screen that much.
Yeah, someone pointed out, again it may have been Pauline Kael, that in The Fury, John Cassavetes, who's such a wonderful actor, he said it's too bad there wasn't a scriptwriter around to give him more to do because he's able to convey so much more than there was in the dialogue. It's almost a waste in a way of a really good actor.
I mean, he really puts his actors through everything. I mean, when he does variations on a theme, they're unbelievable. You can't imagine where the scene is going to go next, and he does them all.
The thing we need to talk about here is the question of improvisation. I gather that scene had a structure, but was...
It had a structure, but it's a very interesting scene to show because we shot for one day. We shot The Master. The Master is from beginning to end the entire scene. And I was shooting in that style because the film took place in the 40s, and I wanted to shoot in the style of the 40s. And I regimented myself into a style, shooting masters first, medium shots, never too close. Only real close-ups for the love scenes. That's it. You know what I mean? Nothing too close.
That's a Scorsese rule, is it?
No. Those are the film, the 40s.
Well,
45. You know.
But throughout the film, you adhered to that.
Yeah. And I always put Bobby and Liza in the same frame, whether they liked it or not, as characters. In other words, they couldn't get away from each other, you know. And in that scene, from doing The Master all day, in the structure of the scene in the script, we discovered that we felt they could get we could play around, get a little crazier. Like I added the broken window, then he added that stuff, a lot of the stuff, close it up, honey, and that sort of thing. And it is calm and bang, which I like. And then finally, as the rest of the scene progresses, he puts his head under a wheel of a car, the taxi, to kill himself when she says she isn't going to marry him. And then the scene turns at the end of the day of shooting The Master, we decided that it should become very serious. And he should really ask her, and he should become vulnerable and say, listen, I love you. Yeah. And she starts to cry. Then takes her inside. And that's how, that was an improvisation based on, but we couldn't improvise without that structure, that original
you
structure.
didn't know that, for example, Robert De Niro was going to break the glass. You didn't know that he was
No, you see, I didn't, but no, the breaking the glass, all day long you're shooting a scene, a man gets up and knocks on the window, and he kept on knocking on so hard, I said, he's going to break that glass. I said, why doesn't he? Might as well. So I asked him, how long would it take to get some fake glass? Oh, no, it's impossible. Oh, you can't get any fake glass. Forget it. How many could you get? Maybe 5. Well, get them over. 5 glass, you know. And I told Bob, he said, yeah, that'd be funny. That'd be good. And by an hour later, they had 12 pieces of glass for 12 more takes. And the whole next day, we shot the close-ups, or the arm close-ups, as you can see there, medium shots. And then we improvised even more.
Yeah.
You know.
Improvisation in the right hands is a wonderful thing, but I can't stand it when I know the actors are making up the lines on the screen, because my philosophy is if they didn't know what movie they were going to make, why didn't they wait till they did? Yeah, I mean, because some people don't do it well.
Sometimes midway through.
It shouldn't reveal itself, should it? We shouldn't.
No, I don't think it
we aren't
should.
watching live television or a game or something. You know what I mean? Do you have level beyond which you won't accept it if it looks improvised?
Yeah, but there's something sometimes.
Because the best
Have the
actors
last
make it
waltz,
look improvised too, don't they?
Oh yeah.
But it also has something to do with comedy. It really works with comedy when you feel that spontaneity. The more you cut up comedy, the more controlled it becomes. It doesn't.
That's why again, master
artificial.
shots. I was using wide shots all the time as much as possible.
What was that supposed to tell us about that character? The fact that he took her to a porno film when he was trying to impress a classy lady?
Oh, it's just that he's really out of touch with, in a sense, communicating with people, and for him it was pretty classy. He would go to the place on 8th Avenue there. There's a few places on 8th Avenue, show and tell, places like that. You know, you go in quarter, you go in, you know, you see reruns of our old movies, and then they show some porno stuff. You know, show some porno stuff. You sit there, you know, and that's about it. And really, we shot in those places. It's amazing. And in fact, Paul Schrader, who wrote Taxi Driver, has made a complete feature called Hardcore, based on all that, and he directed it. You know, he shot and directed, and just recently with George C. Scott. And what's interesting about this is that he's really just trying to reach out, but he doesn't know how to do it. He even buys a new jacket, and that's a whole thing. But it's.
Does it make any sense to ask questions about personal statements that movies make? That's always a favorite in the film magazines. You know, it's what is the personal statement about violence that Taxi Driver was making?
What is the content of a still life?
Content of a still. Who said that? What is the content of a still life? That's very good.
Yes.
That's right.
But you can reject that entirely unless you have, in fact, why don't you reject it quickly? And
Will you leave me alone? No, I'll just give a little answer.
It's a good thing you don't hang around each other while you're making a film.
No, he does.
Does he heckle you?
Yes, he bothers you. He sits there and says, "You're really not going to put that in, are you? After you get a great take, you're not going to really use that, are you?"
Oh, great.
Oh, deadly. Anyway.
Tell me about De Niro, though. You use him the way John Ford used John Wayne.
He introduced me to Bobby.
Is that right?
He introduced me to De Niro.
He was in 3 of my pictures before.
I had known Bobby years ago, when we were about 15 or 16, just for a week or so.
He was in Greetings and Hi Mom, both.
In a picture before that,
yeah. He used him first.
What does he offer a director?
Well, the versatility and imagination and tons of choices, which is what you want. You don't want to go there in the morning and say, okay, we're doing this line, and we're doing this scene. And let's go from here, and we'll get the master, and we get the close-up, and because it gets very boring. Then you don't want to get up anymore and go, you know, to get anything to get up that early in the morning for.
What did you mean by tons of choices? I mean, he can do the scene 8 times in 8 different
say, look,
ways?
This means something over here. I mean, I could do this if you want. Or I had an idea. I had another idea. Let me just try it. I won't even tell you what it is. I said, great. When he says that, then I shoot, you know, because something explosive happens.
That's the sort of thing that used to infuriate some directors, though, in the old days. I guess they wanted the director
I'd rather have
not
some
a good
fun.
one,
I mean,
I wouldn't think.
I'd rather be surprised sometimes and
he's always
enjoy
surprising.
myself.
He never takes predictable choices. He's always coming up with some kind of strange, off-the-wall approach
There's
to
a moment
characterization.
in New York when he tries to stop a train. And he did it as a joke. I said, great, leave it in.
Tries to stop a train. Was improvised?
Yeah, it was a fake. He's trying to get on the train. He grabs, and the train is a piece of cardboard actually, because that's part of the idea. Boris Levin, who was the production designer of Giant and The Sound of Music and West Side Story, and he did this fake train. It was going by, and during one of the rehearsals, it was all one take, and Bobby just latched onto it, tried to stop it. You know, and then dragged himself along right out of the frame like this. Yeah. And we were all laughing, and it's terrific, and we're ready to shoot. And I said, do it. Use it. I said, it's very funny.
Well, which of you first laid eyes on him? Now, when he first came in to read for you, I gathered it was from an open call or something. And
he was show business.
As they say, an actor off the street.
Yes.
Was he impressive then, when he first
Well, he comes in, you know, Bobby's very quiet, you know, you don't exactly know what's going to happen. And he walked in, he was about 19 at the time, and I was doing a picture called The Wedding Party. And he was supposed to play this jock, a friend of the groom. So he sort of did an improvisation. We saw that he was quite good, and he sort of came over to me afterwards and he said, I've been working on a scene in my scene study class. Could I do it for you? And we had already decided he was terrific. We were going to use him. So I said, you know, why not? He said, well, it'll take me a few minutes. So he goes out the door, and, I'm sitting around waiting, 5, 10 minutes go by. I mean, we thought he had left.
Which would have been
And
another
suddenly,
original
he comes
stroke.
back in. He's doing a scene from Strike or something. He's the head of the union.
Waiting for Lefty.
And he comes in like Lee J. Cobb. He's ranting and raving.
Waiting for Lefty, right?
Yeah, right. And we were, we're shocked because this
He's
sort
so
of
quiet
timid
at first.
kid that went out came back like Lee J. Cobb, but with all his.
He certainly had.
John
The first moment I
Friendly.
saw him in Mean Streets, and the minute he came on the screen, which was the first time I had seen him, and I saw Out of Order. You could tell he had.
Well, I
that
made a
quality that
constructed a
once-
whole
once in a
film
bit-
based on that.
Guess what? Cut. We're out of time.